McDonald's isn't just burgers, a fun vibe, and happy kids. It's also cancer-causing chemicals in kids' toys that grows pink slime in the meat and terrible working conditions for the staff. So who created one of the biggest, most profitable empires where success comes at the cost of health, life, and ethics? But here's the twist. This empire, this golden-arched giant, wasn't built by the McDonald's brothers. And definitely not by some made-up clown named Ronald. No, the real mastermind was someone else. Sharp, unstoppable. A businessman who didn't just take control of the brothers' company, he even walked away with his partner's wife. It all started with two ordinary men, Dick and Mac McDonald. They had a vision: fast, delicious food that anyone could enjoy. Their small restaurant in California was always packed, the smell of sizzling fries pulling in customers like a magnet. The brothers watched over their treasure with quiet pride. All they wanted was to live a simple life and run their business. But their dreams were shattered in a ruthless battle for power. This is the story of a man who rewrote the rules, leaving the brothers with nothing while he built a billion-dollar empire. And yes, it's also the story of how a simple burger became a global symbol of an entire era. Stick around, because this story is just getting started. You'll see how this legend was built, who the real brains behind it was, and why the name McDonald's still echoes around the world with a bitter truth hidden behind the golden arches. Along the way, you'll additionally uncover notorious scandals from the last 25 years that shook the company, revealing the darker side of its success. This is a story that'll give you chills. Before McDonald's became a global empire, before its golden arches became a symbol recognized across every continent, it was just a small restaurant in San Bernardino, California. At the heart of it were two brothers, Richard and Maurice McDonald. They had no idea they were about to change the way the world eats. Richard Dick and Maurice Mac McDonald were born into poverty in Manchester, New Hampshire in the early 1900s. Their father, Patrick McDonald, worked at a local shoe factory. It was a grueling, low-paying job that barely kept the family afloat. The boys grew up watching their father toil for hours, only to struggle financially at the end of each month. They understood early on that hard work alone wasn't always enough. If they wanted success, they needed a smarter approach. In the 1920s, as America roared into a new decade of rapid change, the McDonald family made a bold decision. They packed everything they owned into a car and drove west to California, lured by the promise of opportunity. At the time, Hollywood was booming, and many believed that the West Coast was the land of fortune. The McDonald brothers weren't looking to become movie stars, but they hoped that California would offer them a better shot at success than their struggling hometown ever could. Their first taste of the working world came in the movie industry, but not in the glamorous way they had imagined. Instead of directing films or rubbing elbows with celebrities, they found themselves doing behind-the-scenes handyman work. They built sets, repaired equipment, and took whatever odd jobs came their way. It was hardly the future they had envisioned, but they didn't complain. Instead, they watched and learned. One thing became clear: the real money wasn't in making movies, it was in feeding the people who worked on them. Every day, studio employees and actors rushed to small food stands to grab quick bites between takes. The brothers saw the constant demand and realized they could turn that into a business. Using their savings, they opened a small hot dog stand near one of the studios. It wasn't much, just a simple setup with a grill and a counter, but it was theirs. By 1940, they were ready for something bigger. They took everything they had and opened McDonald's Barbecue in San Bernardino. At the time, drive-ins were the peak of restaurant innovation. Customers would pull up in their cars, waiters would come to take their orders, and food would be delivered right to their windows. The McDonald brothers followed this model, offering ribs, hot dogs, and burgers. Business was good, but as time went on, they started noticing a pattern. Despite the variety on their menu, one item outsold everything else: hamburgers. They saw an opportunity. In 1948, they made a decision that would change the course of fast food history. They shut down their restaurant at the peak of its success and spent months reworking their entire system. When they reopened, they introduced something completely new. This was the birth of the speedy service system, an idea inspired by efficiency principles used in factory assembly lines. The new McDonald's abandoned the traditional drive-in model. Instead of a sprawling menu and waiters taking orders at car windows, they simplified everything. Just 9 items on the menu. No car hops, no long waits. The kitchen was redesigned to work like a well-oiled machine, with each employee assigned to a specific task. One person grilled the patties, another toasted the buns, someone else added the condiments. Every movement was streamlined for speed. The goal was simple: serve customers in under 30 seconds. And it worked. The new McDonald's wasn't just a restaurant, it became a sensation. Customers lined up for their 15-cent burgers, amazed at how quickly they could get their food. The days of waiting 20 minutes for a meal were over. Families, workers, and teenagers all flocked to the strange but incredibly efficient little restaurant. Profits soared, and soon people started asking a simple question: when will you open another one? What the McDonald brothers didn't know was that someone else was about to answer that question for them. And he had much bigger plans. Ray Kroc was a man who never stopped looking for the next big opportunity. Born in Chicago in 1902, he grew up in a working-class family where he learned the value of persistence at an early age. His father had steady but modest jobs, and while the family never went hungry, they certainly weren't wealthy. As a child, Kroc showed a natural knack for sales. He had a way with people, a gift for persuasion. By the time he was a teenager, he had already worked as a grocery clerk, a piano player at a bar, and even a door-to-door salesman. But Kroc wasn't satisfied with just making small deals. He had bigger ambitions, and his career path was anything but ordinary. He tried his hand at selling real estate, played piano for a radio station, and worked in the hospitality industry. Yet, no matter what he did, he kept coming back to sales. In the 1930s, he landed a job selling paper cups, and that's where he got his first real taste of business. It wasn't prestigious, but he was good at it. So good that he became the top salesman at his company. Then came the next breakthrough, the multi-mixer, a machine that could make 5 milkshakes at once. Kroc saw the potential and left his stable job to become the exclusive distributor of this device. It was a gamble, but Kroc believed that speed and efficiency were the future of the food industry. By the 1950s, Kroc was crisscrossing America, selling multi-mixers to diners, drive-ins, and soda fountains. He was in his 50s by then, a seasoned salesman with decades of experience. Business was steady, but he wanted more. He was always looking for something bigger, something game-changing. Before we continue, we want to thank you for watching our first video on YouTube. Your likes, comments, and subscriptions bring us joy and inspire us to create new videos. Then, in 1954, Kroc noticed something odd. A single restaurant in San Bernardino, California, had ordered not 1, not 2, but 8 multi-mixers. That meant they were making 40 milkshakes at once, non-stop. But it didn't make sense for a single restaurant. It was simply absurd. No restaurant needed that much volume unless they were doing something completely different. Curious, Kroc got on a plane and flew to California. When he arrived, he was stunned. The McDonald brothers weren't running an ordinary restaurant. There were no waiters, no car hops, no delays. Just a system designed for maximum efficiency. Customers lined up, placed their orders, and got their food in seconds. It was fast, consistent, and unbelievably smooth. Kroc had spent years visiting diners across the country, but he had never seen anything like this. As he stood there watching the process unfold, he realized something. This wasn't just a successful restaurant. It was a blueprint for a revolution. A well-oiled machine that could be duplicated across America if the right person had the vision to make it happen. He sat down with Dick and Mac McDonald, eager to hear their story. They explained how they fine-tuned their operation, cutting out inefficiencies and perfecting the speedy service system. They were proud of what they had built, but when Kroc asked them about expansion, they shrugged. They had no grand ambitions. To them, McDonald's was just a profitable business, not a world-changing idea. But Kroc saw something they didn't. He pitched them on franchising, telling them that their system could work anywhere, that America wasn't built on just good ideas. It was built on scaling good ideas. The brothers were skeptical. They had tried franchising before, but found it too hard to maintain quality. They didn't want the hassle. But Kroc was relentless. He wasn't just another salesman, he was a man on a mission. And he had one goal in mind: to take McDonald's and turn it into something bigger than the brothers had ever dreamed. Finally, they struck a deal. Kroc would be responsible for expanding McDonald's, while the brothers retained control over their original location. With that, in 1955, Kroc opened his first McDonald's franchise in Des Plaines, Illinois. He invested everything he had into making it work, personally overseeing operations, ensuring every detail matched the original San Bernardino location. The response was electric. Customers in Illinois were just as eager for fast, affordable food as those in California. Sales skyrocketed, and soon it was clear: Kroc had found his golden ticket. But as the success rolled in, so did the tension. Kroc wasn't satisfied with just running franchises. He wanted control. And if he was going to turn McDonald's into the empire he envisioned, he knew he had to do something drastic. The McDonald brothers had built the system, but Ray Kroc was about to change everything, at any cost. With McDonald's success skyrocketing, Ray Kroc and the McDonald brothers should have been partners in a golden age of franchising. But the reality was that they never saw eye to eye. The McDonald brothers had built their system with one goal: efficiency without sacrificing quality. To them, their restaurant was a masterpiece of precision, a place where customers got fresh food, perfectly made every single time. They weren't chasing domination, they weren't looking to disrupt the industry. They were satisfied with running a few great restaurants. But Ray Kroc was never satisfied with anything modest. From the moment he saw the San Bernardino location, he understood what the brothers didn't. This wasn't just a great restaurant, it was a blueprint. And blueprints are meant to be scaled. But Kroc had a problem. The McDonald brothers weren't interested in his vision of explosive growth. They feared losing control, worried that franchisees would cut corners and ruin their system. Kroc, on the other hand, wanted McDonald's in every town in America, and he wanted it fast. This was the moment when Kroc's true genius and ruthless nature came to light. If the brothers wouldn't give him control, he would take it, one strategic move at a time. As if instinctively following the principles laid out in The Prince by Renaissance philosopher Niccolò Machiavelli, Kroc understood that to truly control a situation and achieve his ultimate goal, he needed a powerful leverage point. He saw that by controlling the foundation, he could control everything built upon it. At first, Kroc was simply a franchising agent, but then he did something unexpected. Instead of just selling franchises, he started buying the land they were built on. The point was that at first, Kroc was making only 1.4% of a restaurant's revenue on franchising royalties, while 0.5% went to the McDonald brothers. But Ray quickly realized that his cut wasn't enough to cover expenses, such as operational costs, marketing and promotion, quality control, payroll expenses, and debt repayment, let alone fuel expansion. That's when Harry Sonneborn, his financial advisor and future first president of McDonald's Corporation, suggested a game-changing idea: real estate. Through Kroc's newly formed McDonald's Franchise Realty Corporation. This was a masterstroke. Instead of relying solely on a small percentage of restaurant sales, he now had a steady income stream from rent. Simultaneously, he made sure that every new McDonald's sat on a property he controlled. The McDonald brothers still technically owned the brand, but Kroc now owned the physical ground under each restaurant. Franchisees paid them rent, meaning that even if the brothers resisted expansion, Kroc's version of McDonald's would keep growing on his terms. As his empire expanded, tensions with the McDonald brothers turned into an all-out war. They refused to compromise, clinging to the belief that McDonald's should remain a small, family-run operation. Kroc, who saw himself as the rightful leader of this vision, felt shackled by their resistance. Then, in 1961, he made his final, decisive move. He offered them a buyout, $2.7 million, enough for each brother to walk away with $1 million after taxes. It was a fortune for the time, and after years of battling with Kroc, they took the deal. However, there was one last twist. As part of the sale, Kroc had promised the brothers something off the books. It was a 0.5% royalty on McDonald's future sales, which would have been worth hundreds of millions in the long run. But after the deal was signed, the money never came. There was no contract, just a handshake, and Kroc had no intention of honoring it. The McDonald brothers had built the system, but they walked away with a fraction of what it was truly worth. Meanwhile, Kroc's personal life was just as ambitious as his business. At the time, he was married to his first wife, Ethel Fleming, a former actress. But as McDonald's grew, so did Kroc's appetite for reinvention. His long hours and relentless ambition took a toll on his marriage, and in 1961, after decades together, he and Ethel divorced. Not long after, Kroc married Jane Dobbins Green, a well-connected socialite. But this marriage was short-lived, because Jane wanted a comfortable, stable life, while Kroc was consumed by expansion and control. Their relationship quickly soured, and they divorced after just a few years. Then came Joan Smith, the woman who would truly capture Kroc's heart. Joan was smart, charismatic, and had an undeniable charm. There was just one problem. She was already married to Rollie Smith, a McDonald's operator in Minnesota. Kroc pursued her relentlessly, sending gifts, writing letters, and making it clear that he wouldn't give up. Joan initially resisted, torn between loyalty to her husband and Kroc's overwhelming persistence. But Kroc was never one to accept limits. Eventually, she left Rollie and became Mrs. Kroc, the new queen of the McDonald's empire. By the time the dust settled, the McDonald brothers were out, Kroc was in full control, and his global vision was coming to life. The golden arches began to rise in cities around the world, becoming a universal symbol of fast food, efficiency, and corporate power. Ray Kroc had won, but at what cost? Today, McDonald's is a global powerhouse with over 40,000 locations in more than 100 countries, serving millions of customers daily and generating billions in revenue. The Golden Arches have become a universal symbol of fast food, efficiency, and corporate success. McDonald's ranks among the largest companies in the S&P 500, which lists the top 500 US corporations by market capitalization. Beyond its business achievements, McDonald's has also built a legacy of philanthropy, most notably through the Ronald McDonald House charities, which provide housing and support for families with sick children. This initiative was championed by Joan Kroc, the widow of Ray Kroc, who dedicated much of her life to charitable causes, cementing McDonald's role in corporate social responsibility. But behind this towering success lies a history of controversy. While McDonald's revolutionized the way the world eats, it has also faced scandals that cast a long shadow over its reputation. For example, in 2004, Super Size Me exposed the health risks of fast food, as filmmaker Morgan Spurlock documented the alarming effects of a McDonald's-only diet. Moreover, at the time, McDonald's policy dictated that if a customer didn't specify the portion size, they were automatically given the largest one. The public outcry was swift, forcing McDonald's to discontinue its super-size menu and introduce healthier options. Then, in 2010, McDonald's was caught in a toxic scandal, literally. The company recalled 12 million Shrek-themed drinking glasses after discovering they contained cadmium, a dangerous heavy metal. The revelation outraged parents and sparked yet another public relations crisis. 2 years later, in 2012, the infamous pink slime controversy erupted. Reports revealed that McDonald's had been using a chemically treated meat filler in its burgers. The backlash was so severe that the company was forced to publicly abandon the practice to salvage its reputation. In 2014, a food safety scandal in China rocked the brand when a supplier was caught selling expired and contaminated meat to McDonald's restaurants. The accident severely damaged consumer trust and led to a sharp decline in sales across the region. But the challenges didn't stop there. Since 2015, McDonald's has faced ongoing scrutiny over labor practices, with workers around the world protesting low wages and poor conditions. Allegations of wage theft and unfair treatment have further fueled the debate over corporate responsibility in the fast food industry. Yeah, with such immense power comes responsibility. As McDonald's continues to expand, the real challenge lies in balancing profit with ethical responsibility. Will it rise to the occasion or become another cautionary tale of corporate ambition? Thank you for watching our video. Be sure to check out the new incredible story by clicking on the screen. See ya!